Libra 26. An eagle and a large white dove turning into one another. The eagle is the hunter, and the dove is the peace bringer. And we have the choice, and what we choose is what we get. Do we choose to be a hunter, looking out for what we choose to eat up? Very yang, very powerful. Or the dove, just the symbolic representative of an ideal. Yin, more internalized, more sensitive to feelings and the harmony that can be brought to life. And we're not arguing in favor of either of these two conditions of life. What we're doing with this degree is looking at the degree of consciousness of the adept, the master. The adept has the facility of raising consciousness to a point above it all. And from that higher perspective, seeing what options are available. Those of you who have studied quantum physics or have heard the term may understand that it's actually the meaning of life on a physical level is that the world, in fact the cosmos, is simply an energy field, undifferentiated. It's not yet coalesced into a decision about this, that or the other. What moves the field of potential into coalesced form, into the reality that we feel is a hard fact. What makes that possible, what makes that happen, is the observer, us. We make the choice, and all of this electrical field of possibility becomes something. And before we make that choice of perception, it doesn't. It's just maybes, the waveform of maybes. Now that's a bit hard for some of us to understand. It took a long time for me to get my head around it. But that's how it is. You get what you choose, and until you choose it, it doesn't exist. You make something exist by the operation of choice. In the case of the adept, the facility has been developed to move to a plane above this plane of duality. And from that higher perspective, understand this question of quantum physics. Understand that nothing is real until it is chosen. And when it is chosen, it becomes the overwhelming delusion of reality. We immerse ourselves so totally in what Hindus call Maya that we think of it as absolutely real. Really, we fight wars over this. We're so convinced that our reality is the only reality. But mastery, spiritual mastery, requires us to rise above that sense of duality. And from that perspective, we make our choices in the experience of wisdom. We can think about, if we do that, then this will occur. That's a path. Every choice is a path. It's a step on the path, isn't it? And we could choose differently. So at every choice we make is a crossroads between two different paths. And the adept can see where that path goes and where the other path goes. And it's not available, that foresight, to those who react without that level of consciousness. The degeneration of our lives is the result of our unwillingness to make our choices from a position of wisdom. Very often these choices are made from pleasure or desire for pleasure or obedience to someone else's set of values, or our perception of life as filled with scarcity and fear instead of the faith that we could have to see that life is exactly the opposite of that when we choose it to be that way. You see, most people are exercising this choice. There is no choice about whether we exercise choice. We are given free will, whether we like it or not. And most people don't like it, so they choose to obey and follow the habits and the tracks of others. And others have come up with this model for life, which is fear-based. And some very few, follow a model of life which is based in spontaneity and freedom, and most importantly, faith. That's the fundamental choice that we would make. And if we really rise above it all to this position of mastery and can see the implications of our choices, if we really can do that, then we see that the choice of faith and of love and of truth leads us where we want to go, and other choices don't. Now, we don't really necessarily want to go on the fast track. The fast track's a bit like a motorway or a highway. It's a bit boring. Whereas the circuitous track takes us into strange areas where we're not really doing what we could be doing to progress spiritually. But we want to do that for fun, for pleasure, for curiosity. So it's not wrong to have a little bit of pleasure and to be sidetracked by that. Not wrong. But it's just the long way round. And it can actually lead us into circles of confusion and doubt. And anyway, it becomes unpleasant. We eventually understand that the wholesome feeling that we have when we're doing the right thing most of the time is actually a better feeling. Not moment by moment, perhaps, when pleasure overtakes us and our habits overtake us and when we get that temporary buzz. But if we think about the week or the month or the year, then doing the right thing gives us the slow burn of joy and happiness, which is a constant in our lives. So the choice that the master makes is that choice, going for the long term, depending upon principles and practices and wisdom. That's inevitably the choice that's made. What unfolds from this? Different understandings. For example, when we come across something in life that we can't deal with, we become maybe frustrated or angry or depressed or whatever. We all do. The solution will not be found on the level of the problem. That's a mistake. On the earth plane, we have difficulties, and unless we rise to a higher plane, we will not solve them. In one cosmic sense, that's what the difficulties are for, so that we learn how to rise at will to these higher planes of consciousness where we can actually take the longer term into account and see the implications of our current choices. And we won't really kind of learn how to master life unless we have difficulties to overcome. So when you find yourself in a frustrating position, instead of getting angry or depressed, just slow down, stop, and move yourself into a meditative state and just think things through a little bit, but not really in a way that the grasping mind works, in the way that the subtle mind works. Just allow your perceptions to take you into the inevitable future. You've just fallen in love with somebody, and that person is married with children. What are you going to do? Well, why not walk away? The pleasure of the short-term affair is going to take you into harm's way. And there's a party, and you know that if you go to that party, this is a different example, you'll get involved in drinking or drug taking or whatever. Well, why not turn the telly on, or go for a walk or something different? Just consider an alternative and then think about the long-term implications of that alternative. The master can only be a master having mastered indifference. Indifference is a state of not really caring what happens because you can deal with everything that comes up. You have preferences, but it doesn't matter if they're not fulfilled. Oh well. It's just nothing. You're not grasping a particular way of being or series of events to occur. And that clenching, that grasping, that craving for a particular thing to happen, that's the source of all suffering. This is what Buddhism is teaching. That desire of craving for something particular. That's the end of all peace. Indifference. I can have it, I can not have it. Lovely if I do, lovely if I don't. I don't care. That's a high spiritual principle. It's not careless, it's carefree.